This week, a reckoning on subway safety in the city.
The subway is the lifeline of the city. If it isn't safe, the city goes down the toilet.
Plus a scam targeting seniors in Queens.
I just felt so bad that I did that.
And a gruesome mystery unfolding on Long Island. Right now, Fox 5's Crime in the City. Here are some of the crimes from across the 5 boroughs. We begin this week at Grand Central, as surging subway crime leads to big safety changes underground.
Another subway conductor has been attacked on the job. It happened in the Bronx. Police say someone hit her in the head with a glass bottle just before noon on the southbound 4 train at 170th Street. The male suspect ran away after the attack and is still on the loose. The victim is in stable condition at Lincoln Hospital. Last week, a different conductor was slashed in the neck on an A train in Brooklyn. Today's attack on that subway conductor happening just hours after Governor Hochul unveiled her plan to crack down on the rising subway violence.
All right, it includes bringing in the National Guard, who, as you see here, are already helping with bag searches at Grand Central. Fox 5's Sharon Crowley has the latest.
Members of the National Guard searched the bags of subway riders at Grand Central. It's something many New Yorkers haven't seen since right after 9/11. And this just hours after Governor Kathy Hochul made her announcement deploying the Guard, state police, and transit cops to assist the NYPD in random screenings to combat crime on the subways.
I'm here to take action.
The aggressive move to deploy the National Guard into the public transit system comes after a subway conductor was stabbed in the neck last week and another rider was shoved onto the tracks. Incidents making up a rash of violent crimes underground since the start of the year.
There are crazy people in the subway, so I don't think it's a bad idea.
And just today, another MTA conductor was hit on the head with a bottle on a subway in the Bronx.
It makes it appear that New York is the nation's biggest city. Is a place where criminals are in charge and the people who are trying to live there aren't.
Political consultant Hank Scheinkoff says because the state is in charge of the transit system, the governor had to do something drastic, especially since this is an election year where Republicans often portray blue cities as soft on crime.
The subway is the lifeline of the city. If it doesn't function, if it isn't safe, the city goes down the toilet with it.
Critics are already questioning how effective random bag searches will be in reducing crime and whether doing so will damage New York City's reputation as a place Mayor Adams repeatedly calls the safest big city in America.
Well, realistically, there's over 1,000 subway entrances. Only a small number of them will have troops at them at any given time. People can refuse to be searched. People can find a different entrance. The likelihood of this actually preventing any crime is incredibly small.
Well, the mayor says that this spike in crime is largely due to a relatively small number of repeat offenders. He and the governor are hoping these random bag checks do something to deter crime.
Up in the Bronx, police make an arrest in connection with a grisly discovery inside a Highbridge apartment.
Police make an arrest after a human torso and foot were found inside a building in the Bronx.
The suspect has been identified as Sheldon Johnson, a criminal justice activist who previously served time in prison.
All right, Fox 5's Linda Schmidt live in the Highbridge section of the Bronx tonight with more on this surprising turn of events. Linda.
Yeah, certainly surprising. Well, first of all, this guy said he had turned his life around after spending most of his adult life in prison. In fact, just last year, he started working with the Queens Public Defender's Office. Well, now he is accused of shooting a man in the head in the apartment building right here behind me and then dismembering his body. 48-year-old Sheldon Johnson of Harlem is charged with murder and concealment of a human corpse. This is Johnson recently on Joe Rogan's podcast, talking about how he had turned his life around after a life of crime. He was working with troubled youth with the Queens Public Defender's Office. The shirt he is wearing says Queens Defenders.
I got into school, I got my GED. From there, I got involved in correspondence courses. I started interacting with guys who were teaching ART, aggression replacement training, and I started to begin to understand how these concepts work, what positive visualization is, deep breathing, how to remove yourself, conflict resolution.
Well, police say Johnson's life of crime apparently was not over. He is accused of shooting 44-year-old Colin Small in the head in Small's 6th-floor apartment on Summit Avenue and then dismembering his body. Detectives combing over potential evidence again today. Inside the apartment in the High Bridge section of the Bronx, a law enforcement source telling me they found a man's torso and foot in a plastic storage bin. Investigators also found the victim's head, legs, and arms in Johnson's freezer in his apartment building in Harlem. The superintendent of the victim's apartment building saying a neighbor heard gunshots, and surveillance video tells the story.
The tenant of the apartment, he came in, he never came out. So I called police because it's suspicious.
The super providing me with these surveillance pictures inside the building that allegedly show Johnson carrying bags in and out of the apartment building the day of the murder and changing his clothes several times, as well as wearing disguises. Now, today I also reached out to the Queens Public Defender's Office where Sheldon Johnson had been working, but they had no comment.
Moving now to Queens and the search for the man wanted for robbing a church while disguised as a priest.
Well, he may call himself one, but according to the Brooklyn Archdiocese, he's no priest.
That's right. Police say he impersonated a man of the cloth to get into a Queens church before managing to steal $900 in cash. Fox 5's Jessica Formoso spoke to an actual priest about the theft at the church.
Police are looking for this man in a blue suit and black shoes who they say is a priest impersonator.
He needs help. He's a wacko. He's a real wacko.
According to authorities, last Sunday, the suspect walked into the American Martyrs Roman Catholic Church on Bell Boulevard in Hollis Hills, Queens. He approached the Monsignor, who was getting ready for his 12:30 Mass, and said he was a visiting priest from Rome. Father Peter Rader was in the rectory at the time.
He said to Monsignor, he said, I would like to concelebrate, but all my stuff is in the rectory. I spent the night there.
The Monsignor let him into the rectory through the back door. The crook then walked up to Father Rader's bedroom and stole $900 from his dresser.
He had free reign in the rectory for about 15 minutes.
When the father realized what was going on, he confronted the suspect.
I asked him if he had a letter of suitability that's needed when you're traveling, so we know you're in good standings with your diocese. He said, oh, it's in my car, I'll go get it. And that was it.
The NYPD says he fled the scene in a dark-colored sedan, but the father says this isn't the first time this man walks into a church acting as one of them.
He tried to do the same thing in Brooklyn, St. Thomas Aquinas, and Flatbush Avenue. And the sisters of Amityville, Dominican sisters, they saw the picture and say, that's the guy that tried to break into our place.
Police could not confirm if the man in those attempted robberies is the same suspect in Sunday's burglary. They say they are not ruling anything out at this time. In a statement, the Diocese of Brooklyn says, this man who is preying on churches must be apprehended before someone is harmed and more stolen. We have been working with the NYPD and will be in contact with the FBI regarding this. If you know anything about this suspect, you're asked to call police at 1-800-577-TIPS. A cash reward is being offered.
Staying in Queens, authorities sounding the alarm on a new scam targeting the city's seniors.
A new warning tonight for seniors in several neighborhoods in Queens. Many are being targeted by home repair scammers who pose as contractors offering to do repairs.
But instead of fixing the homes, they actually make off with thousands of dollars from unsuspecting owners. Jessica Formoso spoke to one of the victims and has more on what is being done to stop these scams.
They would have better off if he had taken the money and didn't do anything, just stayed away.
In tears, Miss Catherine Safran recalls the day she became a victim of a scam. It was February 10th. She was sitting in this same chair looking out the window when she saw a construction truck pull up to this quiet street in Glendale. A man got out and came to her door.
He said to me, we were doing your neighbor's roof across the yard, and we noticed that something on your roof didn't look right.
The man told Miss Safran he can take a look and give her a free estimate. She agreed. She went inside for a quick second to grab a coat, but once she came out,
there on the floor is shingles and a piece of wood, and they're soaking wet. He got me scared. that scared me.
Ms. Safran says he was very convincing, told her he could take care of it. He gave her a contract and a business card. She said the next day 2 workers showed up and started ripping the roof apart. In total, she handed him $31,000 in cash. She went to the bank to get more money. It was a bank employee who caught on and said she was being scammed.
I just felt so bad that I did that. You know, actually guilty when I think about it, you know?
She is not the only victim. Dozens have fallen for the roof scammers who are preying on the elderly across Queens.
It's an organized crime ring. They're international even. So it's, you know, many of them are coming from the South, the scammers. Many have an Irish brogue. Some have an English accent.
Councilman Robert Holden says this has been a problem for years and says police need to do more.
The police don't realize that this is a scam even. So if you call the police, they'll tell you it's a civil matter.
As for Ms. Safran, she had to pay $20,000 to fix the damage on her roof. So in total, this scam has cost her $51,000.
Back in the Bronx, a deadly house fire uncovers more than a dozen illegal apartments in the building.
There are new details tonight in the deadly fire at a home in the Bronx that took place on Friday. Building inspectors now saying the space was illegally converted into over a dozen single occupancy rooms. Fox 5's Richard Jacobus has the latest on this.
In the pouring rain, residents of this now charred single-family home on Grand Avenue in the Bronx came back to gather up their belongings after flames ripped through yesterday afternoon, leaving one person dead.
It's sad, very sad.
This was no ordinary home, however. New York City building inspectors found this home was illegally converted into 17 single-occupancy rooms from the basement all the way up to the attic.
Rent is very high, and it's hard to live. You end up working, everything goes to rent.
Residents didn't want to go on camera, but a search on the Department of Buildings website reveals complaints at this address, 2533 Grand Avenue, go back to the year 2008. Some of the complaints read, reporting a private house renting out rooms illegally, and two-family home renting out rooms without permits to do so. Another reveals a garage is rented out to people who don't even live here. Neighbors we spoke with say they never saw anything out of the ordinary, except that the street seemed a bit more crowded in recent years. Mozib Rahman attributes that to the new high-rises being built across the street.
Yeah, now overcrowded. A lot of people, they're moving, for this area. It was before less. Only one house, this house, only one house. Now 80 street, how many apartments? They have like a 69.
Because of that fire damage, more than a dozen people are now homeless after a full vacate order was issued by the Department of Buildings. Buildings also tells us the American Red Cross is helping some of those people with finding a place to live. As for when or if any charges will be filed against this home's owner or the landlord, Building says that's still under investigation, along with what caused this deadly fire.
And finally, leaving the city, outrage after the suspects arrested in the Long Island body parts case are let go.
Shock and outrage after the 4 suspects arrested in connection with the dismembered body parts on Long Island were released without bail.
All right, Governor Hochul blaming the Suffolk County DA's office, saying they should have brought more charges, but the DA says all of this is because of New York's bail laws.
Jody Goldberg takes a look at this war of words.
I don't think our governor is getting the message.
It was high-stakes finger-pointing. Suffolk County officials versus New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
Governor, you need to do your job.
County Executive Ed Romaine teamed up with state and county lawmakers and the PBA to once again call for changes to bail reform laws. They're using the arrests of 4 suspects accused of hacking human remains before scattering them throughout Long Island as a prime example of why a judge should have discretion over setting bail.
When you can take a dismembered body and attempt to conceal it in a place that children play, and then walk out of court scot-free. This is not rational.
Investigators found blood, butcher knives, and meat cleavers in their apartment, but so far they've only been charged with tampering with physical evidence, hindering prosecution, and concealing a human corpse. They all walked out with GPS monitoring devices because the crimes they're accused of are technically not violent under New York state law. Governor Hochul responded on Good Day New York on Thursday morning.
Maybe the DA should have done a more thorough investigation and brought murder charges or
conspiracy to commit murder or even assault charges because all of them are bail eligible.
But District Attorney Ray Tierney says police detectives have been working 24/7 on the case.
The prosecutors were able to argue dangerousness in their bail application. Those 4 defendants would still be in jail.
Officials on both sides of the aisle insist it's not politics, but rather an issue of public safety.
What we have to do is restore the discretion of judges.
Perhaps we've gone a little bit too far with bail reform, that perhaps we've favored too much the perpetrators of crime and not weighed in enough for the victims of crime.
Residents say it's downright dangerous.
It's ridiculous.
I think bail should be set.
As far as the case goes, the grand jury will hear evidence and charges can be upgraded. Now, 2 of the defendants are due back in court tomorrow, the other 2 on Monday. No word yet on a possible motive.
And that's this week's Crime in the City. Subscribe for more at youtube.com/Fox5NY.